they just made terrible mistakes in purchasing and writing them. And Raines, who was the head of Fannie Mae, who was dismissed, he executed the first part of it. They were balancing or harmonizing earnings as well. And I knew what they were into as far as the mortgages was concerned, and I knew their position was financially irretrievable. I never really thought it would get as bad as it has now. And they have $5.2 trillion worth of mortgages. They will probably have, I would say a conservative estimate would be about 35% will turn out to be bad. So, we're looking at
$2 trillion,
close $2 trillion. And on top of that, they have allowed the shareholders to lose almost all their money. They have allowed the preferred holders to probably lose all their money, and a lot of them are banks.
All right. Well, I'm sorry for interrupting, but is it 2 or 3 trillion? Because my math would be $2.5 trillion.
Yeah, 2.5, and that's a good figure. It could go as high as 4, but I baseline it at 2 and say it'll be 2 or more. And that'll take 5, 6, 7 years.
But how much does that infect? I mean, that's only $2 trillion on the mortgages. Then they sold bonds. They sold those packages. And I've seen some reports say it's $50 trillion. Some say it's $25 trillion. I mean, how big is the domino effect?
The domino effect could be as large as those figures that you've mentioned. I'm just going for the base facts. I mean, that's enough to compel anybody to have a spinning headache.
Well, I actually have one right now.
The preferred holders are $36 billion. I don't see any way the government can't come in. They've got to come in and bail those people out. Because if they don't, a whole bunch of banks are going to go under that wouldn't go under.
All right, let's keep talking about it right now. Here we go with Bob Chapman. Keep rolling, Bob. Keep rolling. Just keep going.
And also, of $1.3 trillion, around figures, of bonds, those bonds, over $800 billion worth, are held by foreigners. And I think that's what brought this thing to a crescendo. I mean, it had been going on for a long time.
So you're saying they had to?
Said to them, look, you better guarantee those bonds or you got a serious problem.
Here's the $64 million. Here's the $64 million question. Then we'll go back, Bob, and I'll let you roll. Here's the $64 million question. And I want to answer this when we come back from break. But right now, you can keep going over the Chinese and what you were saying. But before I forget, because I write notes here and then forget, when we come back, when or if, how long till this eats through, this time bomb, until they see the Treasury is insolvent with all the crap they're dumping on it? Or will it just go on forever, and then because it's the government backing it, it won't matter if it's all fraud, and then we enter a la-la land where any investment, including used birdcage liner, is as good as gold. So, I mean, you see my question. Let's answer that in 3 minutes, but continue answering with the Chinese saying, look, we're holding this. Go ahead.
And I think they pushed them into it. And I don't think that they wanted to do that 2 months before an election. And so I don't think they had any other choice. And I think that was probably the compelling factor. Another thing is that the Chinese have been, again, buying dollars with yen in order to suppress the value of yuan, I should say. And the reason they're doing that is to continue to be competitive. Because they're starting to run into some pretty stiff competition offshore. And, of course, too, their banking system's got problems I won't even go into here, which is as bad as the Japanese had in 1992. And that's because Communist Party members get loans and never pay them back. And so China was saying, look, you got to honor these bonds, and on the other hand, we're going to buy dollars because we want to keep our currency down, and by doing so, we'll buy treasuries with that money. And so they were a support mechanism on one side by buying the treasuries, but on the other, they wanted protection on their Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac bonds. And so I think that's what compelled the Treasury to go forward and meet the challenge finally. They didn't want to do it. And
well, that was
how long will this take? Mm-hmm. It'll take an absolute minimum of probably 3 years, and it could go out many years. And what they're going to try to do is extend the real estate and the mortgage and the securitization of mortgages problem as far out into the future as they can, so they can deal with other problems that they've got now, where about 50% of brokerage houses and banks are insolvent. And this is a monstrous problem. And so by doing what they've done, they are able to throw some of it into the future. Example, right now, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and you didn't see this anywhere because they didn't publish it, they changed the role of default on mortgages from 90 days to 2 years.
Wow.
Well, again, it's to extend and extrapolate, as you said, and I think that what they're going to do, and I don't know if Paul Craig Roberts addressed this, is, yes, they are going to take on their balance sheet at the Treasury the bad paper that's out there, which is the CDOs, the SIVs, and the ABSs. And those are bonds that contain, for those who don't know out there, mortgages which were securitized and made into bonds. The last one, ABS, is asset-backed securities, and they are packaged with vehicle loans, swimming pools, mobile homes, motorcycles, those kind of things. And all of that stuff on average right now, if you can find a market, is selling somewhere in the vicinity of 50 to 60 cents on the dollar. There's some of it's at 10 cents and some of it's at 80. It all depends on what paper you have. And so at 50%, the Treasury eventually, and they're going to be very, very quiet about doing this, is going to take this on, these securities on, and they're going to loan against it. And they won't loan 100% of the value of the security. They will probably loan something near the market. And so the American taxpayer is going to end up paying for all of that rotten paper that was issued by the banks in the United States. The banks are being let off the hook, and that would include the rating companies, S&P, Moody's, Fitch, who lied about the ratings and said they were AAA when they were BBB, which is the difference between a 10 and a 4. They're going to let the mortgage originators, the appraisers, the salespeople, and the 85% of the people who lied on their applications off the hook.
Now,
the Treasury's going to eat it. The Treasury is you and I.
Yeah, the Treasury is you and I. Now, what does it mean, the huge announcement, as you said, that got almost no attention? I'm ashamed I haven't mentioned it here. I did see it, that they've moved from a few months on default on mortgages for individuals, civilians as we're called, to 2 years. That is a big break in this whole area of burning the people. That's a place where the people actually get something, though we'll pay for it in dollar devaluation down the road. So basically, if you are somebody who's insolvent, you cheated too, you lied on the piece of paper. So the only people getting punished here are people that saved and people that did a good job.
Exactly. And, you know, this is the only way that they can do it. What the institutions have been doing already is they've been moving them off balance sheet. And they do that, they take a package, let's say it's worth $5 billion, and the person that they sell it to, but it's not really sold because it's a conditional contract, and they sell it to another party, and the other party pays 20%, and the entity loans them 80% to buy the bad paper. I mean, you talk about Mickey Mouse bookkeeping. It is so illegal under FASB rules, it's unbelievable. And they expect people to stand by and look at them rob us and us to stand still for it. It's incredible. I mean, nothing like this has ever happened, and everybody in corporate America and Wall Street and government doesn't say a word, that the whole thing stinks to high heaven.